ones.
Absolutely. And you mentioned about the gap in talent and skills, which is really important. And I think when that happens and companies and industry, and different industries realize that, and then it's like, okay, it's, anybody who has got that skills should be able to apply there and thrive there. And then I think it will come with time that, they will have to provide the support that women need, because of different things, like we mentioned, whether it's taking a break because, they want to have a family or whatever it is. And, if we don't provide that support system that's needed, that's the reason why women kind of tend to exit from those careers. But like, given that, we're seeing that shortage, and, they will be provided the fair kind of opportunities that they need, that will come with time, I believe. And we really hope that, the kind of support that's needed. And a woman shouldn't feel like, if I am doing this, I'm like kind of putting burden on the system or the company for taking the extra break that I need to take care of my child and, for my own well-being, for example, or for a man, for example, in terms of well-being. So I think that's quite positive to know that that's happening already.
Yeah, and you made a good point around the I guess what you're saying as well is like women have certain preconceptions, right? Like about having a baby, is it a burden? Taking it, and I think there's unfortunately for women there's multiple preconceptions. I think in my career, unfortunately, I know of girls and ladies and females who have gone through certain incidents where, not related to childcare or babies, but more kind of sexual harassment, right? Whereby I've had the luxury of working across multiple companies, and these are giant firms, and within these firms you've got different departments, different areas. So I know a couple of people who, and it's not many, but there are a few incidents where a woman will be working in a project for a client in a certain area, and they may be subject to inappropriate text messages or inappropriate comments, or nothing major, nothing kind of fully blown out of scale, but just small inappropriate things that can really make them feel uncomfortable. And unfortunately, some of those women have reported it and kind of it's resolved. But unfortunately, to your point around perception, some women feel they can't speak, and that if they do, it will hinder their career.
Yes.
Because and there's once or twice a couple of friends I had known who had told me retrospectively a few years after, but they said, I'm on the brink of promotion, this project is the project that's going to get me promoted. If I then if I report this and they take me off that project, then it will hinder my ability to get promoted. Now, the reality is that's not true, but it's what they think to be true, right? And if you think something to be true, then for that person, it's the truth. So unfortunately, it extends beyond having a baby. It's deeper than that, unfortunately.
Absolutely. And I agree. And why, and we also know why women tend to think that way. Maybe not every company is like that, but what we've seen in the past, what people have experienced in the past, that's a reason. And I know, I've talked to different women about this and how they feel a bit uncomfortable even talking about whether it's something to do with their health. They feel like, I don't want to talk about this at work because I don't want anybody thinking, oh, she's got some health problems. So which means, there is, again, they think that, their progression is going to be hindered because of this, or somebody's going to kind of, not be judgmental, but like, kind of not give them the opportunities that they deserve, just in case they've flagged something that they're going through personally. But it could be mental health, it could be anything, right? So yeah, you're so right. And hopefully these things get better. But there's a lot of conditioning that has happened over years, decades, or longer, that we have to get past to get to the stage where we want to be. So Shiv, my next question is about mental health of men. So we've talked, of course, mental health is a very, very important topic for me. And, I've often talked about women's mental health, or like everybody's mental health, really, it affects everyone. But given the kind of, again, it comes to the conditioning and how kind of, we have a society where it's kind of, there's this kind of prevailing, kind of a toxicity, in the sense that there's masculine, toxic masculinity, where, the perception is that, oh, men are fine because they're strong and this and that, right? And women, of course, a lot, like all of us have some sort of, like, a lot of people have mental issues, and it's absolutely fine to talk with them about them and to address them. I think mostly, I'm making, like, this is not like a something that applies to all, but I think that mostly women, at least from my own experience, my personal experience and experience with other women are generally, not all the time, they're generally good at expressing how they feel. So if they are down and, obviously there are certain conditions where completely different people can get really closed off, but generally women can talk about stuff, how they feel. If I can't talk to my husband, I'll have a friend that I can talk to, or have family or somebody. But usually, because the conditioning around raising men in our society, like, I think it kind of applies to all kind of cultures globally, is that, we see men as like these strong creatures, who are always ready to take on challenges. There's nothing that can beat them, and there's absolutely no chance of them being vulnerable. So mental health discussion is just out of the window. Nobody talks about it. So I just wanted to talk about this, and what is your view on this, and how are workplaces in the UK particularly, as we're talking about this this space. So how do you think workplaces are dealing with this? Is there enough focus on mental health for men, or do you think it's still a work in progress?
It's a really good question, and you'll probably see me smiling a bit as you were talking, because being a man, so a lot of what you say resonates, right? So yeah, I feel you on this, and I think what I would say is, in general, if we just look at mental health in general, I think it's become so prevalent. There's so much more we can do, but it has become really prevalent in the workplace, right? As in awareness of it. I think at a general level, there's so much more. Looking at the industries and the companies I've been in, there's so much that's been done in there. I think there's lots of, especially in-house, there's lots of in-house, like, webinars, training sessions, conferences, forums to talk about it. And where I've seen it being done really well in general is where there's even like a mental health kind of semi-training course where you can become a certified. When I say certified, I mean internally certified, like a badge, right? As like a mental health coach or a mental health ally. And the good thing about those is, in big companies, if you have these type of coaches scattered around, then they can help filter that into the area that they're in, right? So that awareness and those skill sets and that ability to identify when someone's not okay. So I think it's been really good to see actually how it's broadened out a lot, right? And I've really enjoyed seeing that. And actually, as it working well is where I was on a client previously in London, and very big project, 80 plus people, and I was very kind of tight and close with one of my colleagues there, who was female, and she didn't come to one day at work. I noticed she didn't look great. She just wasn't herself, right? And I think it's important to just, she may not reach out and say I'm not myself, but I think it's very important for the person, if you spot it, then say something to that person. Just ask them, they may lie, but at least they had an opportunity to share. Some people often just need an opportunity. They just don't know how to let it out, right? And so I spoke to her, I said, are you okay? Hey, I'm not feeling great. And then the next day she texts me, she goes, I'm not well, I'm taking a mental health day today. I'm off sick. And it was great, I thought, because normally when we say we're off sick, can't come into work, it's got a headache, my leg hurts, or whatever, I'm feeling sick, I was vomiting, food poisoning, or whatever it may be, right? But how many people turn around and say, I need a mental health day, I'm not in the right headspace, right? So I was really kind of proud of the company and proud of her and proud to see that generally. So that's on a general lens. But when you asked me specifically about men, and I think for men, in the workplace, do I think there's enough done for men, or is there stuff done specifically for men? No, I don't think there is. I think Movember is a good thing to do. I mean, I have a beard and a mustache always, so it's been a bit difficult to do. But I did do Movember in the past, and I know lots of people that do it. And I think it's great, it's fun, and it creates awareness. And other things that I can think of is perhaps, encouraging kind of shared parental leave, or promoting, working from home at the moment for males as well, if you've got children. That's about it. But that kind of just scratches the surface, right? And I think as you said, men are very less likely to open up about these things, regardless of whether they're more in touch with their sensitive side or not. They're just less likely. And I think it's a society. You talked about conditioning earlier, right? And I like that word, conditioning. And I think men have been conditioned the same. And I think a big lens of it is culture, right? So I can speak about myself. I'm obviously Asian, I'm Indian, right? And I think typically in Indian families, we come from big families where our grandparents and our parents had, you know, hundreds of siblings and whatnot. So you come from big families, and typically within those families, it was a case of a man is supporting a big group of people, and the females are typically housewives, or they don't work and they look after the home, and it's a man's responsibility to make sure that they're okay and to look after them and to fend for the family. Now obviously times have changed, like women are in the workplace and are excelling and are doing amazing, just as good as men, and that's brilliant. But I feel like even though times have changed and the situation has changed, the conditioning hasn't, and it's still with a man, right? And I feel like we've evolved and we're over here, but the pressure and the mentality and the conditioning is still here, right? So then now there's a gap. There's a gap because before we were here in the old days, here in the old days, but now we're here in the new days, but this bit is still here in the old days. This bit is still here in the old thinking. And I'm guilty of it myself. I consider myself very open-minded, I have a sister and a mother who I love dearly, right? And I'm all about equality, but I still have that mentality myself, right? I see it as like a responsibility to make sure my family and everyone's good. And as a result, I won't show much emotion. And I think if you're like that at home, it does translate into the workplace, right? Because of course, some of the best people I've worked with are females, right? Especially before I left the company I was at. But do I still have that mentality of I need to be a man, and I need to kind of like, you know, make sure everyone's okay and the project's going okay, and if everyone's stressed, I absorb that stress. I probably am more likely to do that, and a female may be more likely to do that as well, but I'm less likely to talk about it. I will internalize it, right? I'll internalize it, and then because you have that same conditioning at home, you won't bring it home. You won't talk about it at home, because then you feel like you now need to look after your family at home, right? So where does it go? It just stays inside. And I think it's very much a cultural thing. And it's not just Indians, right? I've spoken to people who are like Italian, Irish, English, even who Africa, that I think that stems in all cultures, right? The way it used to be. Maybe some cultures are more evolved than others, but I definitely think it's there, and more needs to be done to uncover it, because I think men are in denial as well, right? We're in denial about a lot of these things.
Yes, and you know, as the gender equality issue is a global issue, it is so clear that how toxic masculinity plays a part is also very global. If you think about it, the example you gave, that men were the ones who were taking care of everybody working and women weren't, and that was everywhere in the world. That's basically what has created this inequality that we're talking about. And because of that, and therefore this whole thing about men taking on the whole burden on their shoulders and not talking about has been just as long as the whole gender inequality has been. So yes, totally agree with that. And I think when I think about it, and also think that the more importance companies give to mental well-being of people, all of them, the more we can, try to close the gap in terms of understanding and not educating, but like making people aware of, that it's okay. Like, for men, like it's okay for you to grieve, for you to be upset, have anxiety, have depression, and your expectation that we have from you as a man is not that you will not say anything, you'll just carry on. So it's okay if you want to talk about it. It's okay if you want to open up about it, and it's fine to show some vulnerability for all of us. So there is no problem there. I think that's how we need to go forward.
I think the vulnerability, sometimes a man associates it with weakness, unfortunately. And I think I read a stat, right? Actually, this week just happened to someone was talking. I think it's mental health awareness, and it's 75% of all suicides in the UK are men, right? And how crazy is that, right? And I mean, any life loss is a life loss, but the fact that it's 75%, there's clearly a problem there. And
Yeah.
I can speak from my own experience, right? In that, as a personal experience, like the last time I saw you, Jags, pre-lockdown, I had hair, right? I had hair, right? So as in, my hair was thinning out, and as a man, it was like, it was devastating. I was like, what do I do? This is part of my identity. I don't know what to do. Who do I talk to? I'm stressing about it. That means I'm going to be X, Y, Z. You have all these crazy scenarios, and you feel, this is going to affect my masculinity. This is going to affect who I am, my ability in the workplace. You just attach these things to so many different nonsensical, just ridiculous entities, right? Yeah. But as a man, it was something I was going through, that I was stressing about, that I wasn't speaking to anyone else about, that I was hiding from other people, right? And I used to travel into London, and I used to just consume 20% of energy every day, just trying to like hide hairstyles and do silly things. And then it was during lockdown, actually, where I spoke to my mum and my sister a little bit, and I got some reassurance. And then I just thought, this is ridiculous. Like, how can I let such a fickle thing have such a big impact on me? In fact, it's if masculinity is about being in control, I'm losing control here. So just gain control. So I just shaved it off, right? And the amazing thing was, I think, between shaving it off and like posting it on social media, there was quite a big gap, right? But then when I did, at one point, there was a picture of me with a shaved head. I was amazed that a couple of guys reached out to me, and they were like, it really, really suits you. I'm struggling, but it suits you though, but it won't suit me. I don't know what to do. I'm really kind of like worried about this. I'm stressed. And they were sending me pictures of their hair and blah. And I was just amazed at how it's a thing that could infect. I think it's like 50% of men are affected by some sort of hair loss, right? Yet no one is speaking about it. And yet the minute I do something, or the minute you kind of lead by example, the stuff that you get back is just crazy, right? So I think as a man, you feel like you need to see it happen elsewhere in order to, you don't want to be the first one, basically. You don't want to be the first one to do these things. So yeah, that's just a personal example, but that's just hair. Imagine bigger things like loss of a loved one, or health problems, or all these relationship problems. Imagine these things which are bigger than hair, the impact and I felt anxious about just that. Imagine what other people are feeling, and then you wonder why there's 75% of suicides are men, so anyway.
No, absolutely. No, thank you so much. I'm so proud, and I'm so happy that you were able to overcome that, and you didn't find any problem with just accepting it, Shiv, because this is where it all comes from. We can't control so many things in life, right? And then if we kind of tend to link things like that to, or anything to, there should be nothing that we should be linking to masculinity. We're all human beings at the end of the day. And that's what we need to really realize, right? And be accepting of how we are. And obviously, at a personal level, as a person, as an individual, we all strive to grow, be better, learn new things, and, really grow. But other than that, there's nothing else we should really worry about, whether people are going to judge us, how they're going to say, no, we really need to take care of ourselves and think about, take care of ourselves first, and, then think about anything else. So I'm so glad that, you were able to deal with that and not worry about it. So well done. So yeah, thank you so much for sharing a personal example. That was just great. Thank you so much.
No problem.
So Shiv, I also, as I've known you personally, I know that this is something that's important to you, and you like to mentor young people. So what would your advice be to young people at this time, especially given the pandemic, how universities have been impacted and how the job sector has been, affected? So what would your advice be to young people trying to find their way in the job market?
Yeah, no, it's a really good question. It's something I'm very passionate about as well. And I think the reason I'm so passionate is I talked about my internship right at the beginning, and I received guidance from people in my life and outside of work. And then during my career, people guided me early on. And I feel like we need to give back, right? We need to do the same. And as you mentioned, COVID is just, not only has the university experience been impacted, but then the job market has been impacted. So it's a double whammy for students, right? And it's not easy for them. And I think me and you, before we started recording, we're talking about, we're enjoying working from home, but what about a new grad who joins and is like, oh, okay, is this what work is like? Is it my bedroom because I studied here, a week ago, and now I'm working here. So it's difficult. And I guess, look, first of all, what I'd say is if there's any students watching this and they want to speak to someone or want advice, feel free to reach out to me completely, just for a chat. I'm happy to help. And I think if I was to give advice, I've written some stuff down, actually. The first thing I would say is just reflect. You've just finished university. You've just finished 3, 4, sometimes 5 years, right? Just reflect on what you've enjoyed. I think we have got so much data in our heads, but we don't actually download that data about ourselves. Like we just go through the days and go through the days. Just reflect, download, ask yourself, what did you like? What didn't you like? What interests you? And then for each of those, ask yourself why. And what you'll start to do is build up a picture of yourself of kind of things that you enjoy and where you like to go. I think we have this culture that we're born with of racing. It's a race. School is a race. School is a competition. Can you get top of the class? Can you get the high grades? And similarly, we feel like you race to get your degree, then you race to get a job. Don't race, just to get on the right path. Don't just race to get on any path. So number one is reflect. Number two is, and I didn't really do this, to be honest with you, but look at the companies that you're applying to and ask yourself, do they resonate with you? Do you like that company? Not just, oh, they're cool, like Instagram is cool, Snapchat is cool. No, but like, do those values resonate with you? Because early on in your career, it may not be important. You may be excited by money. You may be excited by all the fancy perks. But I guarantee you, once those things wear off, the type of company you're working for matters more. And if you've now 2-3 years into your career and you're like, hang on, I don't really like this company that I'm working for, I don't like its values, then of course it's not time wasted. You've gained experience, but you could have spent that time somewhere where you do enjoy, right? So research and actually be selective who you apply to. Don't just apply to any company and they kind of don't resonate with you. Like don't do that, because you'll regret it later. So research and be selective. Obviously don't be too, I'm only going to apply to these one companies, but I'm saying, think about, do those values resonate with you? Third thing is then, what's your brand, right? And this is a question you should ask yourself throughout your career. What is your brand? The way someone described it to me is, you've got a hand, you've got 5 fingers. Think of 5 things that your brand is, right? And those 5 things will change throughout your career. So ask yourself now, what are the 5 things I want to be known for, right? And try to think of like, is it I want to be known for kind of the data guy? Is it I want to be, or girl, or is it that I want to be known as kind of a leader and I've led all these clubs at university or is it I want to be known as entrepreneurial? What are the 5 things, right? And typically some of them should be common for everyone, like hardworking, dedicated, get stuff done. But think about your brand and really communicate that, right, in your CV and in your interview. And then the 4th thing is, when you are applying to jobs and when you are speaking to people, recruiters and whatever, remember, these are human beings, right? They're not, of course, sometimes CVs are automated by robots, but when you're talking to people, they're human beings, right? They're not some elite people that are out of reach. You could be talking to me. I've interviewed people. I'm just a normal person, right? So because you're talking to a normal human being, try to be clear and the word I like to use is sticky. Like, be sticky in their mind, right? There'll be so many people that you remember a conversation with them many years ago because they were just memorable, right? So when I say be sticky, I mean, they're going to talk to thousands of students. Don't just blurt the same standard answer, right? Think different. Think about how it's not just about what you say. The impact of your message, 97% of the impact of your message comes from how you say it, not what you say. Only 7% come from the words, right? So what I mean, understand your brand and your values and communicate that, but how you do it. So when I spoke to a student very recently who had to give a presentation for an assessment center, and I just spoke to him about the structure of it. And I said, well, why don't you talk about the customer first, then talk about this? Don't just jump into the solution, right? Which is what he was going to do. Talk about these things first. And he said it went really, really well. So it's about being memorable, about being sticky, like thinking about the structure. And then the final thing is, keep going, right? Like, you are desirable. You have just graduated. You've come out with a degree. You've shown that you can work hard. You're actively searching for a job. Be proactive, but remember, you are desirable. So in the situation now we're in the market where you may not get a job straight away, or you may not get on the scheme that you wanted to, or you may not find those companies that values align with you. So you're just applying to anywhere, which is okay to start with. just keep going, right? You are desirable. Don't tell yourself that you're not desirable, you won't get anywhere. You are desirable. You will get the thing that's right for you. And in each assessment center, each CV, each interview, each rejection, it's a learning, right? Take the learning and ask for feedback, because the real failure is if you don't learn from each step, because by the time you get to the final one, you should be a different person from when you applied, because you've learned at each step, each way, right? So keep learning. Anything you do, ask yourself, what could I have done differently? What have I learned? And then you'll keep growing. Don't just stay binary from here to here. It's the learning, right? So they would be my kind of bits of advice. And like I said, if you want to speak further, feel free to message out, and I'm happy to speak to any students.
Great. Thank you so much, Shiv. All that amazing advice. I wish somebody advised me with all those things when I was a graduate looking for my first job. But yeah, thank you so much. It's been so insightful speaking to you. And, I just cannot, wait to share this. And yeah, thank you so much. Very, very, like I said, I really enjoyed discussing all the different points, and how much we've covered in this time is just amazing. From gender inequality to men's mental health, to how to provide support and help to the youths who are trying to get into the job market. So yeah, I cannot thank you enough. I really appreciate it.
Thanks. No, thank you. Thanks for having me. And I felt like I talked a lot. I've obviously had my Weetabix, so I was going quite a lot. So yeah, but it was good seeing you again, Jags.
It was all great talk. I absolutely enjoyed every second of it. Thank you so much, Shiv.
Take care, Jags. See you later.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye-bye.